a load of tosh. And I think that's pretty good. Is this what adulthood is? Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sam Lyon and I am a full-time musician. Last year, I shared with you a little insight into my finances, how I earn my money and how I spend it. 12 months later, how do my 2023 finances compare? Did I earn the same or did I earn more? Let's find out. Just like last year, we're going to deep dive into my income and expenses as a full-time, self-employed, independent musician, and also see how it compares to previous years. Why am I doing another finance video? Well, I'm a really nosy person, and I love seeing all the behind-the-scenes stuff and knowing the ins and outs of what makes people successful. And as always, little disclaimer, this isn't representative of musicians as a whole. This is solely representative of my journey and my career choices. But here's how I make it work for me. Let's start with my income. This is what my income breakdown looks like for 2023. It's no secret that I am a prolific performer and therefore made the majority of my money from gigging. Live performance has always made up a large percentage of my income. In 2019, my performance income made up 70% of my total annual income. In 2020, which I consider to be an anomaly year because of the COVID lockdown, it was only 19%. But this was still my highest earner, with the exception of the government support grant that I received. In 2021, as lockdown slowly started lifting again, it started to regain its usual majority at 60%. And in 2022, it shot back to normal, with performance making up 85% of my annual income. In my latest financial year of 2023, live performance was responsible for 80%. Now, if you remember in last year's video, I talked about how I wanted to try and diversify my income streams a little bit more so that I wasn't fully dependent on just live performance. Because when unexpected things like COVID happen, you realise the importance of not having all your eggs in one basket. So, did I manage to achieve this? Here's how my finances have looked over the last 5 years within 5 different income categories: performance, product sales, royalties, membership, and other. 2022 was the year that I first really pursued my membership scheme, exactly with this intention in mind. So both 2022 and 2023 have been about building my membership. In 2022, my membership made up 5% of my annual income. In 2023, membership made up 8%. And whilst that may not sound like a lot, I'm quite pleased that I've managed to secure nearly 10% of my annual income within another revenue stream. And I think that's pretty good. Product sales went up to 7% in 2023 thanks to the release of my new album and merchandise range, closely followed by 2019 where my product sales made up 6% of my annual income thanks to the release of my Comets and Constellations EP and merchandise. So this only provides more evidence that if I want to earn more income from products, I can. I've just got to stay active on the release front. Royalties came in at 1%. My royalties income has fluctuated a lot, and I'd like to explain why. In 2019, that 7% mostly covered my 2018 UK tour performances. In 2020, my royalties made up 19% of my annual income. That 19% covered my 2019 UK tour performances. And it also included some distributor royalties, which, as I mentioned in my previous finance video, I don't always withdraw. I usually let my distributor royalties build up over time and then withdraw them all in one go when I need the money for a project or something like that. With 2020 being a load of tosh, I chose to withdraw my distributor royalties for an extra bit of income to see me through. In 2021, that 1% reflects the very few performances I did in 2020. Similarly, in 2022, the percentage is very low. A, because performances still weren't wholly back up to the normal number thanks to COVID, but also B, this figure became a lower overall percentage because my income in the other areas started to go back up again. And similarly again, 2023 is very low because although I was back to gigging normally in 2022 again, I wasn't playing much original music. I was mostly playing weddings and pub gigs, and songwriting royalties don't pay you for playing other people's songs. Finally, I've grouped everything else into other, which came in at 4%. This category could consist of recording session payments, equipment sales, travel compensation, crowdfunding support, financial grants, etc. And similarly, I'm just going to briefly talk you through which major things influenced each of these percentages over the years. In 2020, as you can see, there was a spike in my other income. This was pretty much all because of the governmental self-employment COVID business grants. Those grants saw me through the year and also into 2021. Also in 2021, I launched my debut album crowdfunder. So a large portion of my 2021 other income was also down to crowdfunding pledges and support, which I am extremely grateful for. So, was it all well spent? Let's take a look at my expenses, shall we? In 2023, my biggest expense across the whole year was production and distribution at 15%. This was expected. In 2023, I released my debut album, so this expense covers things like CD production, lyric book inserts, releasing the music online onto platforms such as Spotify, Apple Music, etc., postage costs for shipping my orders around the world, and more. Next up came marketing at 13%. Which again was expected to be one of my highest expenses of the year. This includes adverts, my website, my mailing list, PR, etc. In close third place was merchandise at 12%. To accompany the new album, I also launched a new range of products. And I've been very blessed that so many of you have liked the new products, so ordering more new products in took up a large portion of my outgoings this year. Following closely behind this was travel at 11%. This encompasses everything from fuel, parking, toll roads, public transport. I also include business accommodation into this category too, like if I need to stay overnight somewhere for work, which is a rarity. If only I was diva enough to stay at the Ritz whilst recording my album. But I do work in a different place almost every night of the week. So naturally I do a lot of driving, I do a lot of parking, and thus travel is usually a pretty big expense. Next up was technology and software at 10%. This includes things like the creative software and the file storage software that I use. It also includes things like memory cards, lighting, yada yada yada. On a slightly similar note, music equipment and instruments came in at 9%. This includes things like microphones, new cables, new stands, blah 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 blah. Coming in at 8% is business, food and drink. Again, because I'm out working most nights of the week, it can often lead to unsociable meal times where I have to buy food at my gig or whilst I'm travelling, and I usually always have a drink at my gig too. Sometimes I just take a bottle of water, sometimes the venue gift me a free drink, but quite often I tend to buy some sort of refreshment to see me through. Recording and session musician costs came in at 7%. By 2023, I had more or less finished recording my album, so this mostly went on paying my band and support act for the gigs we played together, which I think there was really only my album launch gig and maybe a couple of others earlier in the year that I played as a duo with either my pianist or my cellist. So this was pretty low in comparison to the year before, where this category was actually my most expensive at 39%, because I was in the midst of recording my album. And back in 2019, when it was 20% because I was on tour and had to pay my band for all of the shows. Then at 5% came professional fees. And professional fees covers everything from my business insurances, musicians union membership, paying my accountant, that kind of thing. At 4% was photography and videography. As I mentioned earlier, I released new music in 2023, and so I had to pay out for things like music videos, artwork, promotional photos, things like that. At 3% was commission and agency fees. This is pretty self-explanatory. This is how much I've paid back to companies or individuals who source me some of my gigs. Next, at 2% is my members. This is how much I've spent treating my lovely members throughout the year. My highest tier members receive things like birthday meals and annual gift hampers. So whilst this 2% may not look like a great deal in the grand scheme of things, this figure is actually still in the hundreds. So take from that what you will, logical, mathematical thinkers. And finally, down to the minuscule amounts, 1% of my expenses went on office equipment and furniture. So in 2023, one of the things in this category that I treated myself to was a new shredder. How exciting! Is this what adulthood is? So that I could make all of the beautiful, colourful, shredded packaging that goes in all of your orders that I mail out. The remaining 1% of my expenses falls under the category Other, which includes things like refunds, charitable donations, etc. As you can probably see, and as I've mentioned a few times throughout this video, a lot of my expenses go hand in hand, depending on the project I'm working on at the time. And it's interesting getting to watch how they all pan out with each project. For example, if I release new music, I know there will be more activity in the production category, the marketing category, the merchandise category. I know if I go on tour, then categories like travel and session musicians and merchandise will need a lot more investment. It's also really helpful for me to keep a log like this, so I can estimate for future projects roughly what percentage of my budget needs to be invested in which particular areas. And has investment in those particular areas made a difference to the revenue that I've received back from them? It's all very fascinating stuff. Or maybe you couldn't care less for strategic planning and financial patterns. Maybe you're just here because you're nosy. And that's totally cool too. So what are my goals for 2024? I think they're kind of similar to my goals for 2023, in that I want to continue broadening my income revenue streams a bit more. I realise as a performer, there's not a great deal more avenues I can start doing that I'm not doing already, but I would like to try and make more use of my home recording setup and bringing in more of an income through session work or creating and licensing stock music. But aside from that, I don't really have any major goals. I mean, this year and last year have been my best financial years to date. And I'm honestly just really proud of myself for having a successful job that I love doing and for building a steady, reliable income from it. I mean, what more can anybody really want other than peace of mind and enjoyment? And on that note, I hope you've enjoyed watching. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to me ramble. So thank you. And I hope to see you all again soon. Bye!